Welcome back to the Connected Podcast, recorded right here in Terre Haute, Indiana. I'm your host, Dallas Wilson, and this week we have the owner of VIP Roofing, Show Me's, and The Mill, Tim Drake. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having us.
Definitely. I'm going to jump right into entrepreneurship because you have provided this city with so much fun. From Show Me's to The Mill, which The Mill is a whole nother thing in itself. So could you tell us a little bit about that path from Show Me's to VIP Roofing to The Mill?
Yeah. So there's a ton of stuff before it, but to get into the meat and potatoes, I was in college, University of Southern Indiana, 2008, getting ready to graduate, and things weren't looking really good for the market for pretty much anybody. I lived across the street from a little bar restaurant called Show Me's, and it had done pretty well, and I'd had a few dollar beers there myself during the 2 years that I was going to school. And walked in one day with a bright idea like this would do really great in Terre Haute. So I went to like Staples, bought a briefcase and roughed it up and put some folders and wrinkled some papers and walked in there like I knew what I was doing. And I said, hey, I'd really like to do this in Terre Haute. This is who I am, blah, blah, blah. On we go. And this gentleman was just like, listen here, bub, you go Terre Haute, you find a building, we'll do this. And the whole time, like, so his name was Senior, and he was a captain in the Navy. Okay, this guy's 70 some years old, and he's just blowing cigar smoke in my face for about 2 hours. All right, and I think he's just trying to make my face turn green. But he's like, you go to Terre Haute, you find the building, we'll do it. I said, okay, that's the only opportunity I need. It's not a no, it's not a yes. We'll get going. So 2 hour drive. Called my mom on the way. I said, hey, we need to get looking. I need to try to find a building. So as I got into Terre Haute, I jumped into the car with her. She started driving around. We started just going into all these different little buildings, restaurants, things like that could be opportunities, looking through windows, trying to just dream a little bit. And we came to Sam's Steakhouse and walked inside, and Sam, at that time, business wasn't doing too well. And I asked if he wanted to sublease. And he said, yeah, let's do this. Got a piece of paper, put it down, wrote, terms, everything on it, flipped it over, gave it to me. I was like, hold on, just give me a second. We've got a few processes and things to go through. But really within about a month of that piece of paper being turned to us, we brought the franchise in, they looked at the location, whatnot. About a month and a half, we opened up here in Terre Haute, and we broke every record from food and beverage sales, hour, day, week, month, year. And we kind of haven't looked back since then. So we really hit the ground running. I technically never graduated from USI. It was my last semester when that all hit, and it went so fast. We just went for it.
Yeah. And have you thought about going back to graduate?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can find the time, but, that's something that my mom always wanted me to do, and my dad as well. And, I started out at ISU and dropped out, and then worked out at Sony here for a few years, and then went back to school at USI because I was getting into a little bit of trouble. But no,
Sony is hot as hell.
Yeah. Well, it was different.
Very humbling experience, I'd imagine.
No doubt about it.
Yeah.
We were working kind of on a subcontracted group called Industrial Outsourcing that did a lot of the construction and a lot of the jobs that were probably a little bit like that no one wanted to do. So I handled all the chemical storage and whatnot for both sides of the plant. But it got to a point to where, I hate to say this, but in those big industries, if you didn't have that piece of paper that said, oh, this is so-and-so, and they did X amount of time, you just couldn't lift. You couldn't go, even though I'd, 4 or 5 years track record, come in and work, all that. So I was like, hey, I got to go get that piece of paper. And that was my main driver. I was like, if I really want to get up, out of this and not be so much on the low string, I got to go get that. So that's what drove me to go to, to Evansville. And I loved Evansville. It was great. But I still think I'll probably finish either out at Evansville or I'll come, back here to ISU. They both have great programs, and of course, being here, it's going to be so much easier to probably finish out. Just as a little, but it's going to take a few years before I find the time to actually go out and do it, But I think what's going to be nuts is as soon as I go back, I'm going to be sitting there in class with a bunch of kids that don't know that they can't do it. It's like, let's do it, and off we go again. So, we'll see what happens here in the next few years, but it's been a fun ride. So yeah, that's Show Me's, and the main piece. And, Mike Conley's a big proponent of that too. He's also a co-owner. My Uncle Fred and Mike's dad are a big piece of it as well. Um, and Mike runs the day to day now. So I, along with Mike, ran that for I think close to 6, 7 years, day in, day out. I ran the AM shift. Mike was more of a PM person. So that's kind of how we handled that. Um, I got about 7 years in and kind of got a little burnt out, running all the times of shifts and just what it is. Cause it's a long time period. You're 6 in the morning. At that time when we were really hot, we are running all the way to 3:30 in the morning, and you're not closing down until 5. Like after everything's done, you're not locking
And
the
you
door.
did that for 7 years?
Right back into it.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So kind of got burnt out a little bit
Mhm.
on it, retired. And as I retired, an opportunity came for us to go open up, or sorry, not open up, but there was a bankrupt Showme's in Bloomington, and that landlord came to us because they saw how well we did, and they said, "Hey, the liquor's on the shelf, the food's in the freezer. Do you want to go for it?" And we didn't. Mike and I really didn't like the location. It was out on the west side of Bloomington. It's kind of a feast or famine location, but the liquor license in Bloomington, I think at the time, was $300,000. So it was an opportunity to get into the market,
Yeah,
and
without
it
the
came with the
initial.
lease too.
Mhm,
So we didn't have that initial push, and it's like, well, what's the harm that's going to happen? So we went for it. We both put, I think, $10,000 into the count and took off and went for it. Actually, I stayed in the building. I stayed in a small little room on top of Show Me's, and lived there for 2 years and ran it. But it was difficult. Terre Haute, it always did so well. You could just write a check and make things kind of disappear,
mhm,
if it didn't matter about food prices going up, going down. But Bloomington, being on the outskirts of town, you only had huge crowds when, the teams were doing really well and they closed downtown, and it kind of spilled over toward you. And it was a big store too. It was like 15,000 square foot.
oh my
So
goodness.
it's tough just to manage that
Mhm,
amount of square foot, just to walk it back and forth if you had a problem,
mhm.
you know?
When you're in the middle of the grind, do you think to yourself, "I just can't go back to Sony. This gotta work because I can't go back to."
No, I loved it. I actually wanted to go back. I wanted to go back. It was the reason why I left was probably to come back
Oh, okay.
because, I like how how they did things out there. They used Kaizen as a concept. Everything had a place. Everything was supposed to be here for a reason. I really liked the structure of those pieces.
Mhm,
It would just, I hated to say it, and a lot of things that I do, it's almost like that Pretty Woman concept. Like when she comes back and she's got those bags of clothes, and like, big mistake, big mistake. That was my piece. It was actually go to school, get that piece of paper, come back, because I had a lot of good ideas, and whether it's
mhm.
for ergonomic designs of taking, 10 less footsteps to do one process, that's something I thought could be implemented. But as a little person who didn't have a degree, it was tough to get a voice,
Yeah.
but at the same time, when you're the person taking out the trash, you kind of see what's not being used and what is getting used.
Mhm,
Um, and you can learn from that. And that's something, so like when we started Show Me, is the first thing they wanted us to do was like go onto the floor and do management training. And I said, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to start off, washing dishes. And they're like, well, why would you want to wash dishes? I was like, well, I feel like I can understand the menu like better of what's getting ate, what's not getting, I can see the process and start low and work my way up.
mhm,
That's the same thing I did with on the music side of things. Was I went and worked at Ruoff for 2 seasons, never cashed a paycheck. I worked for 317 Productions just to learn. I've
mhm,
cleaned every seat underneath there. I went in incognito. I didn't want anyone to know who I was. I parked my car on the other side of the venue. I
mhm,
had a nice car at the time, and I didn't want anyone to think, anything less of me about that. So yeah, I always try to go from the bottom up on a lot of things.
mhm.
So you brought up roofing, and now we're in Porta Johns, and it's like, I'm the one that got it started. And Porta Johns, 2 days ago, I was cleaning those Porta Johns. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yeah.
like, if you can't if you can't do it, you can't expect anyone else to do it.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
the big piece.
Mhm,
So yeah, I know we talked a million different directions right there, but Show Me's was the main piece. It
mhm,
had a franchise that helped. That was a big thing. So a lot of those ideas, concepts, to where like my brain always wants to do bigger, better, faster, cooler. That franchise kept it constant, kept it at a level that I'm not saying you couldn't dream, okay, but you had to stay on menu, stay on
mhm,
tact. And they always work with the big food providers to try to keep that price low as you're
mhm.
buying things.
And so it was as simple as demand and supply.
That's what it
Supply and
is.
demand.
That's it. And
Mhm.
without having that backbone, that structure, things probably could have gone awry. but
Mhm.
it definitely helped. That was something that we needed to give us a little, kick in the rear end
Mhm.
and make sure we stay on tact.
And I would imagine just that hard-nosed perspective on taking on entrepreneurship, it kinda transferred to VIP roofing seamlessly. Like, this is nothing. This is just me, again, starting that structure of
Yeah.
following the chain of command from the bottom link all the way up, learning more about it and expanding?
Yeah. So with the roofing, it was a find the need, fill the need process. Same thing as like the music venue and show me's was we had these buildings out on the property and I hated to see them go to waste. I wanted someone in there. I didn't care if gave it away for free. So I had that show me's in Bloomington. All right. And we ran that for 2 years and then it just didn't work out. And we ended up closing that down and
Mhm.
coming back. But we learned how to run show me's when we didn't have any money. All right. First day. So it was like, the big basketball conference coming in. So it's like first day, if not the first week, our feed for our satellite gets canceled because the last owner was pirating the signal coming in. So he had his home box coming in. So the satellite company didn't know that we had changed and this and that. So the first day, it was $12,000 out of our pocket. So we had 20 in. First day in, it's $12,000. Bam, boom, and you had a restaurant full, so you had to pull your credit card out and like, let's do this because you have to have that. You're a sports bar.
Mhm.
So we learned how to run the restaurant from actually being in Bloomington versus like Terre Haute. Not that Terre Haute never taught us anything, but that was a school of hard knocks that really showed us what to do.
Mhm.
So back into the roofing. Um, we had this building. We wanted to find someone to come to town to take it, and we knew a gentleman who ran Texas Hold'em like poker at the time. They
Yeah.
run things. He ended up starting his roofing company and grew that into a tremendous company in Bloomington. And we wanted him to come, but he didn't have the bandwidth to do it. So he said, "Hey, in your off season, I'll come. You come to Bloomington. I'll train you." I said, "Okay, I got the time, no problem." So we trained, we did everything. Things were going good. We were selling roofs here in town, and then they ended up getting bought out of a company of Indianapolis.
Mhm.
And I kind of was like, oh, well, what's that mean for me? He's like, well, you're not really a partner of this. You know what I'm saying? You're a Terre Haute. And it's like, but here's the keys to the castle. We've showed you everything, how to do it. Rinse and repeat it. It's all yours. So I was
Mhm.
like, well, that kind of stings because I was looking for that system. And that's what this company has, like that franchise piece, that rinse and repeat.
Mhm.
So we took basically all the good stuff that we had, everything that we learned, brought that back. We just started small with just friends and family. Hey, you need a roof, this and that. I can make the connections, make the phone calls, so you can sub things out. My first year, I think we only did 15 roofs. Second year in, we were at like 50 to 60. This is a third year which I was been able to bring two guys on that handle the day to day, just like Mike handling day to day at Show Me's and handing that off. And I allow them to make some mistakes and make some improvements where they have their background in. So, and it's off and going.
Mhm.
So same thing. So like Porta John's here probably in the next year. I'll probably try to find a partner that wants to come in and help and assist that. And then I'll back it with our marketing, our experience, everything that we have. Cause that's
Mhm.
sometimes the hard part is you got to believe that you can do it.
Yeah, and that reach is very, very hard. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
You know,
It's so many people occupying the digital space, even in a small town like this, to the point where it's like paying for advertising might be a little expensive. Word of mouth might be too slow. Everybody's not going to find out overnight.
uh,
So it's
if
finding that balance
you
of
figure it
both.
out, you let me know. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so now you're on to the mill, and that's not really a rinse and repeat kind of thing. That's something you learned from Ruoff, a little bit from Ruoff,
Yeah.
but really you started that. What was it? A paper plant
Yeah, it
that
was an old
closed. It.
paper mill and everything, and
Mhm.
way before that, it was the world's largest distillery pre-prohibition and all that.
Really?
So it's got some cool history right there.
Yeah, I had
Memphis
no idea.
Distillery. Yeah, neither did I until I got into it.
Mhm.
Um, but through Show Me's, we did bands and everything else. And one night I was in Wabash, Indiana, and I saw Phil Vassar and Craig Morgan. Just my friend had worked for a long-term retirement home up there, and he's like, "Hey, I got some tickets through the endowment. You want to come see it?" So yeah, so of course I'm up there, and I'm always looking for opportunities. So my buddy ends up somehow he gets Phil Vassar and Craig Morgan to come out to the bar. All right, and we're like, no way, it's not going to happen. But about 1 o'clock in the morning, be like sitting here, and then you see these big Prevost bus just come, the air drops out. It's like, wow, it's on. these guys
Mhm.
are here. So you're partying, right? Because
Yeah,
you
of
you called
course.
them out and they're like, no, we'll be there. So here we are partying and this and that. And it's like, hey, can we get Phil Vassar to come play at Show Me's? And his tour manager at times like, no, you can't really get Phil Vassar. He's not gonna play that. Big into like a piano bar style. I thought it would have been perfect. He's like, but I got another band and they're called Old Dominion. And I'm like, Old Dominion, I've never heard of them. And like, well, they write a lot of songs, but they're starting to get big. I said, okay, let's go for it. And again, you Google them, all we could find was like the trucking company. We couldn't even
Oh,
find a
no.
video of them. All right. So I think we paid $800 and you had Steve Ellis on here. So we ended up renting like the sound and lights off Illusion so they could come play, in town. And then at that time, like You Better Dig Too and all these other little bands or songs started coming out and like, wow, they are blowing up.
Mhm.
So we had them for $800. And again, there's 8 people in the band. So they had $100. All right. Now I threw some chicken wings at them, no doubt about it,
Yeah.
try to make it better. But now they're sitting at about $300,000-$400,000 and they're touring with Kenny Chesney and everything else. So that was kind of the piece was like, well, that wasn't that hard. You just make some phone calls to see if they'll come, if they
Listen
want to
to a few
play.
mixtapes from
Boom,
guys
boom,
from
boom.
bars.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So we needed the space. I knew I wanted to, coming back from Bloomington as we closed, I ended up working at Jones and Sons for a little while just to keep myself out of trouble. So I was their sales guy, inside sales. I was like, yeah, because I lived right down the road. I was like, sure, let's do it. Let's just do something,
Uh-huh.
to kind of keep these idle hands from going crazy. And during that time, I had a lot of desk time in the winter of really not much going on. You're not pouring a lot of concrete or whatnot. And I was like, I got to do this. I got to figure out something to where I don't mind working really hard, but maybe there's a way like I don't have to work all that much. Like I don't have to work every Friday, Saturday night, every this and that,
Yeah.
and
Is
do
this
work.
around the time you were having kids?
No, no,
Okay.
this is a little bit.
Good prep for that, though.
Actually, hold on. Let's rewind here. Yeah, right about there. That is correct. Right at we had kids because so Callie's 8 years old. That's about right. Yep.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, that'll
you
make
got.
you wanna be home a little bit more.
Oh, I know, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. So we found the property, and it's so funny because um, at the time, I think that's when the paper mill still owned it, and they
Mhm.
wanted like $2 million or something for it. And I asked a good friend of mine, John Hamlin. I said, "Oh, what should I offer?" And he's like, "$1." And I was like, $1? What? What?" And he's like, "What's the worst they're gonna say?" I was like, "Okay, I'll try it. I'll go for it." So they said no, but they came down to like 700,000 on the property, and I was like, "Well, I still don't have 700,000.
Yeah.
I
It's
got
not
a
exactly a
dollar."
dollar, but
Yeah, I said, "Okay, so there we go." So that property at that point, like I backed off because I think there was at the time I wasn't getting all the paperwork and everything what I saw for like environmental concerns. It's a huge commercial piece of property, industrial piece of property. I was like, I'm not here. I don't have the ability to weather that storm,
Mhm.
nor I was young.
Yeah.
Like I can do the business, but like when it gets into litigation and stuff, I was a little scared at that
Yeah.
point.
You definitely don't wanna put the cart before the horse, and
No,
it's
no,
in
no.
such an investment. Yeah.
Yeah, so we shelved it for a while, and then that's the city bought it. There was a company that was supposed to go there, this and that. That changed, moved. County came in. I think they pulled it off redevelopment. The jail was supposed to go there. That didn't happen. This whole time, I've just kind of like standing in the corner. I was like, I can do something.
Mhm.
I'll give it a go. I'll try. And I got lucky. We got lucky that we had the opportunity to get in there and do it. And I think we did it for so long. People are like, golly, just shut this kid up and give them a chance. What's the worst it's going to happen? They're going to mow the grass. They're going to take care of it.
Mhm.
It's all on their dime. There's no cost to anyone else. So we had the opportunity, and that's a big piece for us. Is we got not lucky, but because we were persistent and we were ready for it when it happened.
Mhm.
So I don't think that's so much luck, but things were just right. Things timed out right. So we got the property. We're ready to go. Bulldozers are, everything's nice. Then COVID hits, and like we had Nelly booked, everything was ready, and then COVID, and it's like, oh gosh. So here we are. So we have a signed contract. We owe, you know,
Arms and legs.
we got there's money in the pot. So I always say, imagine it being like building a restaurant, having all the food in the freezer, everything's ready. You already trained everybody, and you can't open on the first day. And we didn't really need it, but it would have been nice. So there was no PPE for us there because we had no income, so you couldn't report it as a loss. But
Oh,
you
of
had all
course.
this outgoing revenue or costs and expenses. It's like this stings. So
Mhm.
we held. So during that time, I went and worked at Harside Foods and was a baker. This over in Sealyville. I made crackers during COVID. to try to make the piece, because who knew what anything was and how
What
things,
made
how
you
the cards were
stumble
going to
upon
fall.
that job? Not to sidetrack you too much.
Well, I liked factory work. There's no doubt about that. Again, back to that process. I love working with teams and people and these production lines. There's just something about it that I always come back to, that I
Mhm,
just fascinates me,
mhm,
to kind of get that done. But yeah, Hearthsides was there, and every time I drove by, it smelled so good. I was like, that's not too bad.
mhm,
So, and it was tough. So here we go through COVID. Now we're starting to book, artists, because we're like, okay, so if the city, the state gives us a go ahead, if we do 6 foot in a circle, can we do it? And that's where the whole business model changed at that point, because we were going to be in that old building in the back of the property, which was like a 10,000 square foot warehouse,
mhm,
and have a 3,000 person amphitheater on the back. And it would have been a really cool concept, which we'll get back there. But it flipped everything. So we had to go big, open air, 6 foot in a circle, just trying to, that's all we knew we could do.
mhm,
So we've literally gone to the end of the business plan. Start small, work your way up. We went big. And maybe that's not the worst thing in the world, that we were pushed to have to do that. And
mhm,
now we get to work, you know, we'll probably actually make the venue bigger. We're at about a 10,000 cap right now. We'll push probably 15, 16,000 people. We're already the second largest amphitheater in the state of Indiana, which we didn't know. We had a good friend, Mike Fry. He had a bulldozer, and he's like, "Well, what grade you want it at?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe something like this." And he's like, "About 2.5% grade." Like, good, go for it. And he just started pushing dirt, and that was it. And that's why it looks like the way it is. That's why the depth of what it is. We just ran out of dirt, and that's just where we stopped. We
mhm,
had no true design of how it was supposed to be. We knew the constraints of how it needed to look,
mhm.
okay? But it was a grass and gravel lot, and then we had a temporary stage that came in the first year, and then generators, porta johns,
I
everything.
heard the audio system is top notch.
We do pride ourselves. We try to go as big and bold on audio, lighting, everything that we can. I think
Mhm,
production value is a big key. Make sure that these artists have exactly what they need, and a little bit more from that.
mhm.
So audio is a big thing for me. It's got to sound good.
Yeah, so what's the process of getting, talent to come and perform at the mill? Do you reach out to them? Is Luda in your inbox? How does that happen?
I love it. I love it. Well, sometimes it is, just knowing people and everything, making those special connections at that bar that one night, and then boom, 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 off it goes. So Kelly, my wife, and I will head down to IEBA here in a couple weeks, which is in Nashville, and that's a conference to where buyers and sellers are networking and moving and grooving. But it gets to the point that you can't be there all the time. So you usually find a party, a buying company that can help do that. All
Mhm,
they do is look at artists, understand trends, and try to understand the price and what the offers should be.
mhm,
Okay, so we use a company, and we've outgrown our first one. We worked with the Honeywell Foundation in Wabash, Indiana, which they're a fantastic company. They're a performing arts, center company. So when we talk about Tilson Hall and Hatfield Hall, that's about those performing arts sizes, that 1,500. Well, we've outgrown that. We've
mhm,
really came. We're starting to really make some big deep swings and go for some home runs, and so we're trying to partner up with some bigger companies, and that's what we'll be doing when we go down to Tybee, is making sure that we try to find that right company that fits with our new model and size and scale.
mhm,
Because things are getting serious now. Before, I mean, it always was serious, but it's getting heavy. I mean, our average artist cost our first year, was 25 to $50,000. And now this year averaging is probably close to 200,000. And next year, as we start jumping out, we'll be a 500,000. We'll have one or two artists that are probably a million two to $2 million. So it's a big piece. That'll be our 5th year. We're making some big strides, because we're different than a lot of their music venues
mhm,
in the nation. A lot of them, whether it's Live Nation, AEG, things like that, you know, we own and operate every single piece of it. We do the parking, the porta johns, the food and beverage, not at the same time. All right. But I mean, the contract negotiations, we're always right there, whether it's production value, getting that all done, it all runs through us.
mhm,
So we take a lot of pride and a lot of time to try to make that as good as possible. So there's a lot more growth and potential as we
Mhm.
go. We have a long way to go before we get to what I even conceptualize what is not even close to perfect, but good enough. I mean, Terre Haute deserves a good venue, and we're not bad. We're doing really good for what it is. But
Mhm.
the first year was gravel. Second year came in, we were able to get a piece of the ready grant with a matching piece that we had already put in, and we were able to pour those concrete walkways. You wouldn't imagine how much easier it is to have a concrete walkway, because it's like walking on a beach the whole time
Yeah.
you know
Mhm.
so I mean, and then the first year, all of our bars and everything were pop-up tents, so every time you'd have like a big wind gust, there goes the top side of your bar. It's tough. So getting these little things built, put in place really makes everything easier. Soon as Terre Haute's doing that lift station, we'll be able to tap onto the sewer there. And
Mhm.
then we'll go ahead and put in our permanent restrooms. And then we'll start fine tuning these little pieces. It may sound kind of cliche, but like we almost hope to be like the holiday world of music venues. Holiday World isn't the biggest, okay? It's not the best, but boy, I tell you what, for a value of what it is, it's close by, it's clean, it's family friendly. They got some of the best rides,
It's
and that's
decently unique.
you know, and that's the thing. It's like we're not gonna go get Taylor Swift and Post Malone. There's some constraints that you just can't have. You just don't have the size and capabilities to
Mhm.
have. But we can still get some really, really good, artists to come and play.
Mhm.
So as we start to build and develop that, they're there. We know the opportunities there. We've talked to management, talked to all the different agencies, and we've done a really good job at making sure that the artists are happy. I
Mhm.
always kind of say it's like, well, make sure it's kind of like they're going to grandma's house. Yeah, like, okay, hold on, I'll go get it for you. Like we take care of them, and that's gone back up the river to all the agencies, and they know that we treat their artists well, and they're having a good time. So when they
Mhm.
book with us, they know that there's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. Is it some musicians that you bring with the thought of, the portfolio? So, other musicians now see, okay, Nelly, T-Pain, Ludacris have performed here. I feel more comfortable now performing here. Is that something you have in mind?
So it's there, and I thought that's probably how it would be.
Mhm.
Okay, but they put a lot of trust in their talent agencies that they've booked with, that they've contracted with.
Mhm.
There's sometimes that artist when where am I at? Terre Haute? Okay. And how do you say that? You don't talk to them. They don't even possibly know where they're going until they get on a plane and off they go.
Yeah.
So I thought,
It's all
as long as
managed.
we make sure he or they are happy, it's as long as you make the industry happy, as long as you make the fans happy, you have a good show, good turnout, everything, no big hiccups or something.
It's safe. And
That's a big piece,
mhm. Yeah.
you know, and they know that's like, hey, these guys are working it. So when we first started, we might have been getting like a Tuesday show or a Thursday show. Well, now we're getting Friday shows, and now we're going to get Saturday shows. And those are when, because they can go other places and play Friday, Saturday shows, maybe make a little bit more money.
Mhm.
So we have to make sure that, when they take their risk, because everything's a calculated risk to them of where they're going to go, because there's only X amount of places they can play, that we're doing everything we possibly can to make it the best time, best experience for them.
Mhm. And
So,
I've noticed you've created some key partnerships too. Like for example, ISU every time is set up, got very active students involved. You had the president speak for a little bit at Ludacris concert
yeah.
before Brandon Sackbun even won. You had him talk for a
Yeah.
little bit, and that was pretty cool. So could you speak to some of the resources beyond the Ready Grant, beyond that network that you may have
Yeah.
utilized when building the mill?
A lot of that stuff, can't tell you. We get pretty lucky. We put our heads down and keep working pretty hard and try not to get ill willed or downhearted on certain things,
Hmm.
because it is about this community. And everyone has to start rowing in the same direction. So when you see the
Oh, I
president
love that.
ISU come out, when you see the mayor come out and be a part of it, there's probably nothing that makes me happier on that side, on a community piece, is seeing people that want to be a part of it. We've went out there when people are like, just shut them up, just let them go
Mhm.
for it, to now we're like, people are wanting to be a part of that, and they understand, like, economically, kind of what we're doing, which
Mhm.
is, when we wrote our business plan I bet you when the banks looked at it, I understand why they told us no. Very
All
novice,
things
very
considered.
young. Yeah, no, I get it. I'm sure I'm a little upset still, but it is what it is.
Call them out. Which bank
Ah,
was
man,
it?
no, I can't. No, no, sorry, Bob. Uh,
They're better they're
I've been
better
in this
friends than
town too
enemies, huh?
long. Yeah, there's nothing more that makes me proud to see people that want to be a part of it. We have a ton of family, friends, and people that's been with us from the very beginning, and I can't thank them enough because without them, we couldn't have done it. I
Mhm.
mean, there was some pretty dark times to where it's like, I don't know how it's going to get done. We poured concrete. We poured 120 yards of concrete, I think, 6 days before the Nelly concert. And I remember the pump truck came out the night before, and he's like, as he's smoking his cigarette, "There's no way you're gonna get this done by tomorrow, bub." And you're like, I'm gonna get it done. Don't you worry about it." And we worked all night getting everything, get the grade ready, compacting all the soil in to get it done, and we did it. So I love, love, love when there's people telling me that I can't do it. There's
Mhm.
nothing more that gets me fired up. Like, oh, you can't do it. It's because someone else hasn't done it before. And it's like, just watch me.
Yeah, I feel like mentality plays a huge role in this stuff, and obviously you've lived the best example of a doer's life. These things you just kind of was like, I'm gonna do this. You saw it in Evansville, the show me's, and you said, I think I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this, and then you just did it.
Yeah.
And I think we find so many people who do have so many good ideas, so many things that could work out if they were willing to put the work in and just start to do it, because the process is fun as hell. Realistically, the pursuit of that happiness is fun.
Oh, it's the chase sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And, you look at us as like, what's the next step? And it's like, well, I got to find this BHAG, this big, hairy, audacious goal that because now we've proved it, like we can do it. All right. What's the next step, that's going to make people say like, it can't be done. And that's what excites me. And I'm like, I got it. I'll
Mm-hmm.
figure this out. So it's, the little things, the day to days, that's where I kind of get a little bit bored, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um,
Operational stuff.
yeah, there's
Mm-hmm.
no doubt about it, and that's my wife, man, I tell you what, so, my my wife, if she wasn't there, everything would be lost, paperwork, this and that, bills, she keeps it all going, and, without her, like, at my side, she's just, like, the biggest team member to make this go,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the same thing, like, with Mike, he, finance major from IU. Without him on that side, I couldn't go dream. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? So I got to find the right people. Our next biggest piece is putting the right people on the bus. And we're starting to understand, how I don't want to say how big we are, but how much potential we have.
Mm-hmm.
And to be better for the community, we have to grow as a business. If Kelly and I couldn't take off on vacation right now and expect it to just work. We've got a lot of great people are there, but they're not negotiating the contracts, doing everything, working with all the artists, all that sort of stuff. So we have to build that team. And actually, to be honest, we got to create a business.
Mm-hmm.
We have a good job right now. We have to start actually making that into a business. So those, we talked about Sony and all the different like industries. We got to have that production line to where you can figure it out, you can watch it, you can improve upon it in little bitty pieces and increments. We have a motto. It's like, you know, little mistakes, big improvements.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make mistakes to learn from. Our first year, I thought it was the best idea in the world to put, all the food and beverage really close to like the bathrooms because they would go to the bathroom and then they'd want a beer. Well, the problem was we put them, I mean, they're still 120 feet away, but the lines would converge on each other. Okay. And the feeling felt like you were in line for an hour and a half. So, year
Mm-hmm.
two, all we did was take those porta johns and move them, 80 feet, 100 feet away. And people are like, you guys fixed it. I was like, no, this is the same
Uh-huh.
bar line, same bartenders, everything as year
But
before.
sure.
It's just so it's those little things. And I think maybe that's going to be the special piece about us is we have enough time to build this thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going out there and putting concrete in the ground exactly right now. When we go to put our restrooms in, we'll have a really good idea of why we did it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's, the location, the size, the throughput of, we can tell you right now that 80% of the people, when they come into our venue, which we only have almost like a one side entrance, they sit south side heavy.
Mhm.
They always sit super heavy to where we're telling people like, "Hey, you have a whole nother half of a venue over here that you can go sit," but they just sit so strong. So it's nice to know and be able to see those things so we can slowly plan for the big stuff in the future.
Mhm. Terre Haute with 56,000 people, right? And then Vigo County with 117,000, somewhere around there. There's a lot of space upward, I'd imagine. But could you talk to some of the competition you see being here in Terre Haute? Like the mill has no rival. Show Me's has no rival. There's no other businesses that are comparable to it. So you're not splitting the demand with anybody with these businesses. Is that something you have thought about, not having that competition and
Well, I don't ever want to say like there's other competition. I think competition makes everybody better. I think
mhm,
if Hooters came in and dropped in right next door to Show Me's would instantly be better
mhm,
because you got to be. What's that newer, prettier thing across the street? Well, guess we're gonna put bigger TVs in. We're gonna clean it. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. So competition is not a bad thing.
mhm,
Um, when it comes to music, when it comes to roofing and any of that, it's like you need them to be there. You can take 36 Saloon, you can take Bad Apple Saloon out in Corey, you can take any of the shows at the Shrine. Like we're trying to help some shows there at ISU, and in time it'll work out. But like last weekend you had Thunder in the Valley, which was Jackal and this and that, and so there's a lot of stuff out there.
mhm.
That's one thing that I like. Terre Haute has to kind of sit back and they need to be more thankful. There's a ton of events that actually go on.
Yeah.
I don't
Mhm.
care if it's the Balloon Fest or the Blues Fest or the Downtown Music Fest. There's stuff here. You
Yeah.
just got to
Terre
go
Haute
do
Night
it.
Market coming up.
I know.
Mhm.
You just got to go do it. And when people, you want to hear them complain, but they never want to get active. And they need a little kick in the rear end to get going. Because, some of our biggest growth is actually Chicago and Plainfield.
Mm,
Those, and I right now where I'm sitting, what I think I know is they are customers that are conditioned to concerts. They've lived it, they've grown up with it, they understand what the value is. Like, we have a $7 16-ounce beer, we don't charge for parking, our facility fee is like from $4 to $8. It's cheap,
mhm.
and we're bringing in some good talent with some great production value. They're willing to drive,
Yeah.
but sometimes it's hard to get people to come from across the street.
Mhm.
They'll be like, "I'll just listen to it on my porch." And you're like, that doesn't help,
Yeah,
the things grow here.
it's a fairly cheap experience, but the
Yeah,
experience, I mean, that's bang for buck. It
no
really
doubt
is.
about it. I went, golly, and we're doing some really cool stuff. Yeah, I know it sounds so simple, but like our parking, you get in pretty easy. And then we've had some of the best. So Marcus Maurer with City Engineers came down 2 or 3 times just to see how we do it because we get you dropped out pretty quick.
Yeah.
To where if you're going to Ruoff or some of the bigger places, you could be stuck in that parking lot for 2 hours, 3 hours. And coming back from Indianapolis to Terre Haute, it could be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
before you get it. So sometimes their size and their scale is maybe some of their problems. And if we find our sweet spot, which is what they call us, like kind of like a boutique amphitheater, which sounds cute, but a strong boutique,
Yeah.
Um,
But a strong boutique.
yeah,
Yeah.
we got a
Yeah.
men's section in
Yeah,
the
we're gonna
back,
we're gonna switch up
Yeah,
the connotation with that term.
that's right.
Uh-huh.
There's gonna be something special about it, and I think if we all just keep working at it, it's gonna be really cool in the end.
Mhm. So I know you've told me a little bit about what's next, but what is next for the mill, for you as a business owner, for the family?
Putting the people on the bus. We don't know where the bus is going, okay,
Mhm.
but we know if we can put the right people on the bus that can hit the ground running and go with it, whether it's marketing, food and beverage, production, even maintenance. Like we took this, piece of property it's 64 acres, and we really hope we expand to some more property there that allows us to have more parking. We can't just be a simple grass field. It's everything along that whole stretch is got to be put on our shoulders. It's
Mhm.
all got to be landscaped. We got to put on our walkways, everything else. So when people come to Terre Haute, whether it's Plainfield, Chicago, they go, "This here? What is this?" We want to be that jewel. We want to be that thing, that driver. And when they came into town, we took care of them,
Mhm.
and that's a piece. So it's trying to figure out all that And it's tough because I always say, like, how do you eat an elephant? Because it's that big, and so, but it's one bite at a time. But we sometimes think, well, there's got to be a right end to start on. Like,
Mhm.
you got to have a concept somewhere, a reason, or why you're doing it. So we don't really know. We're going to take it as it goes and kind of just go with the flow and
Mhm.
see what we can. Like, I really want permanent restrooms, but I can't have it yet. I
Mhm.
have to wait until I can tap onto the system. It's close. It's happening. You know, but the fit, finish, adding chairs, we take what we have at the time. Like this year, we got some turf from IU. It was indoor football field through Facebook Marketplace, and the guy's like, "Hey, it's free. You just have to take it all." And like, "Well, how much is it?" And they're like, "Well, 13 semis." And I was like,
What?
"Geez." And then we get the product, okay, and then we find out the rolls with the infill because they're tires, and that's why they're giving it away, because they can't take it to the dump. All right,
Mhm.
otherwise it's gonna get charged. It's 2,500 pounds a roll at 7 feet wide, 50 feet long if you're lucky. And it took 8 people to roll that out. It took, what we thought was going to take 2 days to put down, took a week and a half, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, dang, it looks great though. It's super soft, everything. But, I'd say right now we have to be the greenest amphitheater in the world because we've recycled that and put it, into place. And we've got 4 more soccer fields that got dropped off. I don't know why I keep saying yes to these guys dropping this off, but we'll end up adding the whole rear of the venue, putting that into AstroTurf and whatnot as well.
Mhm.
So, a a community green space is probably our next piece that we're gonna try to get. I really think because 'cause we're so big, it costs so much to turn the machine on. We've worked with Susan G. Komen and some other non-for-profits that when they do an event, they don't really make money,
Mhm.
and that you might as well just ask every volunteer for $20 and you would have, made more at the end of the day. And that's us comping the venue and everything. It takes a lot to have production to get all the way to the back of the venue.
Mhm.
So I actually think working backwards will actually make a smaller amphitheater of like from 2,000 to 3,000 people. That sometimes having a tighter compaction is a better feel, and that energy starts bouncing off each of those people. So we'll actually make our one now bigger. We'll make a medium size at 3,000, and I think we'll end up going with probably 1,500, 2,000 person indoor in the
Mhm.
future. But there's a lot of pieces, and we got a huge master plan of some crazy ideas, and that's to make an entertainment destination out there would be something.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of moving pieces. You got to
Yeah.
get pretty lucky.
Tim Drake focused on providing the vibes.
Bring it on. Yeah.
So if there is a ISU Rose Home and any kind of college student listening to this and thinking about pursuing entrepreneurship in the future, what would you say to them?
Oh man, just don't stop believing. Go for it. What's the worst? I mean, when I was at USI, I think I was like $3,000 in credit card debt, and people are calling me to try to repossess my truck and everything else. Like, well, what's the worst?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Mhm.
Rock bottom is a heck of a foundation.
Mhm.
So as a college student, you're eating ramen noodles. If you got an idea and you're passionate about it and you really want to do it, who's stopping you? Money's tough, no doubt about it. Okay. But if your idea, your concept, and your stuff, you can find the money.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, it's there. And don't let that be the hurdle, because I've not only shown me as I got told no, mill I got told no, everything else. It's Believe me, I've been there and walked from one bank to the next bank to the next bank to the next bank. And it's not easy. But if you
Mhm.
keep your head up and just do go after that pretty woman scenario, and just make sure it's like big mistake. Not to be mean, but just back. I told you.
Uh-huh.
I told you I wasn't gonna stop. Persistence is key.
Mhm. When you hit rock bottom, you can get your feet square flat on the ground and get the best jump. And
Push.
I'm telling you, when you're an adult, you got to take advantage of every
Yeah.
opportunity for momentum.
Yeah.
You don't get so much momentum when you're an adult.
Yeah.
You get a lot of things that act as a counterforce
Absolutely.
of your dreams and goals. So it's very important, and I'm
Yeah.
happy you brought that one up.
Perfect time to take the risk. I mean,
Hmm.
kids, family, everything, you're a little bit more cautious. You
Yeah,
worry about things a little bit differently. If it's just you, it's tough. Like, okay, whatever.
yeah.
But we get family there. So take the risk now and put some roots down. This is a tremendous town that has an incredible ability to grow. This town, Terre Haute, is on the verge.
Hmm.
And I would say if you have the opportunity, an idea or something, or if you want to join forces with someone. You don't always have to do it by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I've found partners, whether it was Mike Conley, my wife, someone who knew more in roofing than I did. Don't always have to do it. Give up a little bit, share some of it and go for it, because you don't know everything. You need someone there to kind of humble you sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'd say just go for it. You got every opportunity in the world. And look at the resources. You can't tell me that if you actually had a true question of how to do something, that you can't go knock on your professor's door or somewhere here in town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I called, one of the banks that we used yesterday. I was like, hey, we're thinking about making a leap and I want to do this. When do I do it? Well, let's talk about this. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Pick up the phone and call. I would
Yeah.
say that's a big piece.
Yeah, so much opportunity,
Hmm.
especially for these college students that really need a portfolio. And that's the biggest part of it.
Yep.
Everyone's getting a degree. It's tons of colleges all around America. What's going to separate you is your portfolio. And this is the perfect town to get active, helping some of these small businesses, nonprofits, even the institutions, by lending the work and the time and the effort to build up the experience necessary to kind of pave the way for your future.
Absolutely.
So you've heard it here at the Connected Podcast. To listen to this podcast or ones like it, visit us at www.connect812.com. Thanks for tuning in. You just tuned in to the Connected Podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, maybe a member of the community you'd like to hear more about. If you want to go the extra mile, click the donation link below. If you'd like to continue listening, click right here. Thanks again for tuning in.